Eliza Monroe pressed the crumpled train ticket against her split lip and swore before God she'd die before going back. Her uncle's voice still clawed inside her skull. "You belong to me, girl, and you'll never get free." But here she stood on the Red Ridge platform in the full heat of July. 300 miles from that house, with nothing but a borrowed name and a stranger's marriage proposal folded against her heart. She didn't know Ethan Calloway. She'd never laid eyes on him. And in 1 hour, she'd promised to be his wife. If Eliza's story already has you holding your breath, do this for her. Tap that subscribe button and stay with her till the very last word of this journey. And leave me a comment telling me what city you're watching from tonight, because I want to see just how far her story has traveled across this country of ours. Now let's go find out what happens when a broken woman steps off that train. She couldn't remember stepping off the train. One moment the whistle was screaming through her ears, the next her boots were on the planks and her knees were trying to fold themselves under her skirt. A porter brushed past with a trunk and she flinched so hard her teeth clicked together. "Miss," the porter said. "You all right, miss?" "I'm fine." Her voice came out sanded down to nothing. "I'm fine, thank you." "You got folks meeting you?" "Yes." She pressed her palm flat against her chest to stop the shaking. "Yes, a gentleman, Mr. Calloway." The porter tipped his cap and moved on, and Eliza stood there alone with the sun cooking the bruises on her collarbone through 2 layers of cotton, and she thought, if he isn't here, I am finished. If he isn't here, Daniel will find me inside a week, and this time he'll kill me for running. "Miss Monroe." She turned too fast. The motion pulled something in her shoulder. The bad one, the one her uncle had put his boot on, and a small sound slipped out of her before she could catch it. The man in front of her didn't come closer. He saw the flinch, and he stopped where he was, 3 full paces back, and he took his hat off his head, slow like a man approaching a spooked horse. "Ma'am," he said, "Ethan Calloway. I'm the one who wrote you." "Yes?" she said. "Yes, ma'am." She looked at him, then properly looked, and the first thing she registered was that he was taller than her uncle. That was the first thing her body checked for now, is he bigger, is he stronger? Can he hurt me? The answer was yes on all counts. Her stomach turned over. But then she saw the second thing. His hands were down at his sides, open, empty, not in fists, not reaching. "You're smaller than the letter made you sound," he said. "I'm sorry." "No, ma'am, I didn't mean it like that." He turned the hat in his hands. "I meant I was worried you'd gotten off at the wrong station. Figured I'd be looking for somebody who could look after herself." "I can look after myself." "Yes, ma'am, I don't doubt it." A woman across the platform laughed one of those sharp-pointed laughs, and Eliza heard, "Look at her. Look at what he brought in clear as a bell, even though no one had spoken the words." She felt her face go hot. Ethan heard the laugh too. He didn't turn his head, but something tightened in his jaw. "Folks here talk plenty," he said quietly. "You pay them no mind. They don't own a square foot of my ranch, and they don't own a word that comes out of your mouth. Mr. Calloway." "Ethan's fine, ma'am, if you're willing." "Ethan." She tried the word, and it came out cracked. "I need to tell you something before we go any further. Before the Reverend, before any of it." "All right. I'm not—" She pressed her hand harder against her chest. Her heart was hitting her ribs so hard she thought he'd be able to see it through her dress. "I'm not the woman in that letter. Not exactly. I wrote what I thought you wanted to hear. I wrote what would get me on that train." He was quiet. She made herself look up at him. "I figured," he said. "You what?" "Miss Monroe, any woman who answers an advertisement from a rancher she's never met 300 miles from her home with a wedding set for the same day she arrives, that woman is running from something. I don't need the whole of it. I don't even need most of it. I just need to know one thing. What is he coming after you?" The wind came up off the plain and pulled a strand of her hair loose. She didn't answer right away. She couldn't. The question was too clean, too direct, and it cut straight to the thing she'd been trying not to say out loud for 2 months. "Yes," she whispered. "He'll come." Ethan nodded, like she'd just told him the price of corn. "All right," he said. "All right. All right. I heard you. We'll deal with that when it comes. You don't even know who he is. No, ma'am. You don't know what he's capable of. No, ma'am, I surely don't. Then why? Because I wrote you a letter, he said. And you wrote me one back. And I gave you my word I'd meet you at this platform and stand with you in front of a reverend. A man's word don't come with conditions, ma'am. Otherwise, it ain't a word. It's a bargain. She stared at him. Her mouth opened. No sound came out. My wagon's down the road, he said. Reverend Hollis is expecting us at 3. There's a woman named Martha Green who wanted to fix you something to eat first. She's a friend of mine. Good woman. She won't ask you nothing you don't want to answer. You all right to walk? Ah, yes. You want to take my arm? No. No, ma'am, that's fine. He settled his hat back on his head and turned, and he walked a half step slower than his natural pace so she could keep up without trying. He didn't offer to carry her bag. She understood without being told that he'd figured out she needed to keep hold of her own things right now. She didn't know how he'd figured that out. She wasn't ready to think about it. They passed 2 women in front of the mercantile. One of them said loud enough to carry, "That is what Calloway sent away for." Ethan stopped walking. He didn't turn around. He just stopped, and the woman who'd spoken went quiet fast. "Afternoon, Mrs. Pell," he said to the air in front of him. "Afternoon, Ethan," the woman said. Her voice had gone small. "You got something further to say?" "No, Ethan." "You sure?" "I'm sure." "That's good," he said, "because I'd hate to have to explain to your husband why his wife was standing in the street insulting my bride on her wedding day." He started walking again. Eliza had to hurry to catch up. "You didn't have to do that," she said under her breath. "Yes, ma'am, I did. They'll talk worse now. Let them." "Ethan, Miss Monroe." He stopped again in the middle of the dusty street and turned to her. "I need you to understand something, and I need you to understand it today before we stand up in front of that reverend. If you get up on that wagon with me, there ain't a soul in this town gets to speak a word against you. Not today, not tomorrow, not 10 years from now. That's the deal. You don't owe me nothing for it. It's just the deal. Nobody—" Her throat closed. She swallowed. Tried again. "Nobody's ever said that to me before." "I reckon that's a shame," he said, and he started walking again. Martha Green met them at her front gate with a dish towel over her shoulder and a look on her face that said she'd already decided to like Eliza before she'd laid eyes on her. She was maybe 50, round-faced, sun-browned, with gray starting at her temples. "Oh, honey," she said, taking Eliza's hand in both of hers. "Oh, you poor thing, you come on inside, the sun out here'll cook you." "Martha," Ethan started. "Hush, Ethan Calloway. You go sit on the porch. Men ain't welcome in my kitchen when there's a bride to feed." "Yes, ma'am." "And take that hat off." "It's off, Martha." "Oh, so it is." Eliza almost laughed. The sound surprised her so badly she put her free hand over her mouth. Martha's eyes went soft. "Come on, honey," she said. "Come on in. Ethan, you get the lemonade off the ice." Inside, Martha set her down at a scrubbed wood table and put a plate of cold chicken and biscuits in front of her and said, "Now you eat and you don't say one word you don't want to say, and if you want to cry while you eat, that's fine by me. I ain't going to stare. Mrs. Green." "Martha. Martha, I don't know what to say to you." "You don't have to say nothing at all. Why are you being kind to me?" Martha sat down across from her and folded her hands. "Because Ethan Calloway don't write to strangers," she said. "That man ain't written a letter in 15 years unless his life depended on it. And the night he rode over here and told me he'd posted an advertisement for a wife, I sat down on this exact chair and I said, 'Lord, whoever that woman is, she needs somebody in her corner before she even gets here.' So here I am, honey. I'm in your corner. You didn't have to earn it." Eliza put her fork down. She pressed both hands flat on the table. "I can't," she said. "I'm going to cry." "Go on and cry then." I don't cry. Today you do. And Eliza did. Not the big, shuddering sobs that had come the night she'd decided to run. Just a slow, quiet leaking with her shoulders still and her hands flat the way a woman cries when she's been taught that crying gets her hit. Martha saw the way she was crying. Martha's mouth went into a flat, hard line. But she didn't say anything. She just pushed the lemonade a little closer and waited.
Chow Sang.
The Reverend was an old man named Hollis, with a soft Kentucky accent and kind eyes, and he took one look at Eliza in Martha's front parlor in a borrowed blue dress, because her own trunk held nothing fit for a wedding, and he said, "Child, are you marrying this man of your own free will?" Eliza's heart lurched. She started. Ethan, standing 6 feet away from her in a clean white shirt with his hat in his hands, didn't move, didn't look at her, didn't prompt her, just waited. "Yes, sir," Eliza said. "I am." "You sure now? Because I don't marry no woman who ain't sure. I don't care who's paid me. I don't care what's been arranged. You say the word child and this don't happen." "I'm sure." "All right then." The vows were short. The Reverend read them, and Eliza said, "I do," and Ethan said, "I do." And when it came time for the ring, Ethan pulled a simple gold band out of his vest pocket, his mother's Martha had whispered to her earlier, and slid it onto Eliza's finger. His hand was warm. His fingers were rougher than she'd expected. He didn't squeeze. He didn't hold on. "You may kiss the bride," the Reverend said. Ethan looked at her then, really looked, and she saw him make a decision. "Ma'am," he said quietly, so only she could hear, "I'd like to kiss your cheek. That all right?" She couldn't speak. She nodded. He leaned down and touched his lips to her cheekbone, just beside where a yellowing bruise still showed under the powder Martha had patted on her. The kiss was shorter than a breath. Then he straightened up and said loud enough for the parlor, "Reverend, I thank you. Mrs. Green, I thank you. I'll take my wife home now." My wife. The words went through her like a stone dropped down a well. She didn't know what they'd sound like when they hit the bottom. She didn't know if she'd survive it when they did. The wagon ride out to the ranch took close to an hour. Ethan didn't fill it with talk. He let the silence sit, and somewhere along the 2nd mile, Eliza realized she was breathing easier than she had in 2 months. Not happy, not safe, just easier. "Ethan," she said. "Ma'am, I don't know what you're expecting from me." "All right. Tonight, I mean." The wagon creaked over a rut. He held the reins loose. "Nothing," he said. "Nothing." "Nothing, ma'am? You take the house. You take whatever room suits you. I've got a bunk out in the tack room's been mine for 10 years. It'll do me fine for 10 more if it has to." "That ain't—" She stopped. Her voice was shaking. "That ain't how it's supposed to work." "Says who?" "Says everyone. Says the law. Says the Reverend." "The Reverend's gone home, ma'am. The law don't come past my fence line without a warrant, and everyone don't live at my ranch." She looked at him. His profile was hard in the afternoon sun, jaw-set eyes on the road. "Why?" she said. "Why what? Why are you doing this? Why did you write that advertisement at all if you weren't—" "I'm lonely, Miss Monroe." He said it plain. No shame in it. No self-pity either. Just the fact of it set down between them on the wagon bench. "I'm 34 years old," he said. "I lost my mother 6 years back, and my daddy the year after. I run 1,200 head, and I got 4 hands who work for me and go home to their own families at sundown, and I sit at my kitchen table by myself every night of my life, and I'm tired. I wrote that advertisement because I wanted a companion. I wanted somebody to sit at that table with me. Somebody to hear me say my piece at the end of a day. I didn't write it for anything else. I wrote it for that. And if the woman who answered needed a house with a door that locks from the inside instead of a husband, well, ma'am, I got a house. Door locks from the inside. It's yours." Eliza couldn't look at him. She turned her face toward the plain and watched the grass go by. "I can't pay you back for that," she said. "Ain't asking you to." "Ethan. Miss Monroe, Mrs. Calloway now, I suppose." "Don't call me that yet." "No, ma'am, I won't. I'll call you Eliza if you'll let me. Yes, Eliza then. I want you to listen to me because I'm going to say this once and then I ain't going to say it again unless you ask. What you got done to you before you stepped off that train today? I don't know the whole of it and I don't need to. But whoever did it, he don't own you no more. He don't own the sound of your voice. He don't own what you eat for breakfast, or what side of the bed you sleep on, or whether you cry at the supper table. He lost you the minute you bought that ticket, and I don't intend to be another man who takes things from you. That's the word I gave the Reverend. That's the word I'm giving you now. She was crying again, quiet, same as before. I don't know how to believe you, she said. You don't have to believe me today. When then? Whenever you're ready, Eliza. I got time. I got nothing but time. The wagon topped a small rise and the ranch came into view below them, a long, low house, a barn, corrals the stubbled gold of cut hay in the far fields. Eliza looked down at it, and she didn't feel joy because joy was a thing she didn't remember the shape of. But she felt one small thing she hadn't felt in a very long while. She felt that she might possibly at some point in the future be allowed to stop running. Ethan, she said. Ma'am. Eliza. Eliza. Thank you. He didn't answer that. She saw his jaw work. She saw him nod just once. He clucked to the horses, and the wagon rolled down the long rise toward the house that was, as of 1 hour ago, her home, and 300 miles behind her, in a dark study, in a white-columned house in St. Louis, a man named Daniel Monroe was standing over a torn-up letter and telling the detective he'd hired that he didn't care what it cost or how long it took. He wanted his niece found. He wanted her brought back. And he wanted most of all to teach her what happened to women who thought they could run. The house was quiet. The way a house is quiet when only one person has been living in it for too long. Ethan carried her trunk inside and set it down in the front room, and then he stood there with his hat in his hands like he wasn't sure what came next either. The bedroom's down that hall, he said. Last door on the right. Window faces east so it catches the sun come morning. Kitchen's behind you. Pump's just outside the back door. There's coffee in the blue tin. Flowers in the crock. Anything you can't find, you holler. All right. I'll be in the tack room. Ethan. Yes, ma'am? Eliza. Eliza. Yes. She stood in the middle of the front room with her hand on the trunk, and she couldn't make her mouth work for a long moment. What do I do? She said. Tonight? Tonight? Tomorrow? I don't... Her voice cracked. I don't know what a wife does. I don't reckon either of us are going to know that right off. You want your supper cooked. I want you to eat supper. Whether you cook it or I cook it, don't matter a lick to me. You can cook. Ma'am, I've been feeding myself since I was 9 years old. I ain't good at it. But I'm standing here, ain't I? Something moved in her chest. Not a laugh. Close to one. Ethan. Yes. Lock the door behind you. The front door. Yes. You want it locked from the inside. Yes. He walked over to the front door. He turned the key in the lock. He pulled the key out of the lock, and he walked back across the room, and he set the key down on the table beside her. Yours, he said. Ethan. It was never mine, Eliza. I just been the one holding it till you got here. Then he tipped his hat to her, like she was a lady in the street, and not a woman who had just married him out of desperation, and he walked out the back door and pulled it shut behind him. Eliza stood in the empty house with a key on the table and a ring on her finger, and she thought, he's going to come back inside. Any minute now. Men say things, and then they come back inside. She waited an hour. He didn't come back. She picked up the key. She locked the back door too. Then she sat down on the floor, not in a chair on the floor, with her back against the wall where she could see both doors at once, and she cried until her ribs hurt. When she was done crying, she got up and washed her face at the pump, and she walked down the hall to the last door on the right, and she opened it. The bed was made, clean linens, a pitcher of water on the nightstand. A small bunch of wildflowers in a tin cup, already wilting a little from the afternoon. She sat down on the edge of the bed, and she touched the flowers with one finger, and she thought, he picked these before he left for the station this morning. He picked these when he didn't even know if I'd get off the train. She slept with the key in her hand. She woke at first light, because she'd trained herself to wake at first light, because in her uncle's house, a woman who overslept got dragged out of bed by her hair. For a full minute she didn't know where she was. Then she did. She sat up so fast her head swam. There was a sound from the kitchen. Her whole body went cold. Then she heard Ethan's voice low talking to himself. "Come on now. Come on, you old..." A clatter. "Damn it!" A pause. "Pardon my language." He was talking to the stove. Eliza pressed both hands over her mouth. The sound that came out of her was somewhere between a laugh and a sob. She got up. She smoothed her dress, she'd slept in it, she hadn't been able to make herself take it off in a strange house, and she walked down the hall. Ethan was on one knee in front of the stove with an armful of kindling and a streak of soot across his cheekbone. He looked up when she came in, and his face went through about 4 different expressions before it settled. "Morning," he said. "Morning. I was trying to have coffee ready before you woke up." "I see that." "I ain't good at the stove. It hates me. We got a long-standing disagreement." "Move." "Ma'am." "Move, Ethan. Let me." He moved. She knelt down slowly because her shoulder still hurt, and she took the kindling from him, and she built a fire the way her mother had taught her 20 years ago, before her mother had died and left her to Daniel Monroe. Her hands remembered what her mind had tried to forget. In 3 minutes, there was a proper fire in the stove. Ethan stood behind her, with his hands on his hips. "Well," he said, "that's humbling. You had the flu half closed." "Did I?" "You did." "Huh." She stood up and dusted her hands on her skirt, and she realized she was smiling. The smile felt strange on her face, like a muscle that hadn't been used in a long time had just been asked to work. Ethan saw it. He didn't say anything about it, but something in his shoulders eased. "Coffee's in the blue tin," he said. "I remember. I'll be out at the corral. Boys will be coming in for breakfast around 7. That all right?" "How many boys?" "Well, 4. "Do they know about me?" "They know I got married yesterday. They don't know nothing else. They won't ask. I already told them not to." "Ethan." "Yes." "What did you tell them about me?" He looked at her a long moment. "I told them," he said, "that Mrs. Calloway is the lady of this house, and any man who speaks to her without his hat off can find work somewhere else." She had to turn around and pretend to measure out coffee. The 4 men came in at 7 on the dot. They took their hats off at the door. The oldest of them, a gray-bearded man Ethan called Samuel, stepped forward first and said, "Ma'am, welcome home." "Thank you." "I'm sorry for the state of the house. Ethan don't know what a broom is." "Samuel," Ethan started. "Hush, boss. The lady and I are getting acquainted." Eliza felt the smile try again. She let it. A little. "I made biscuits," she said. "Ma'am," Samuel said, "I would walk through fire for a biscuit that ain't been made by Ethan Calloway." The men laughed. Real laughter. Easy laughter. The kind of laughter that belonged to men who weren't afraid of each other. Eliza had forgotten men could laugh like that. She served them. Her hands shook a little the first time she reached across Samuel's shoulder with the coffee pot, and he saw it, and he didn't react to it, and she loved him for it. In a small, fierce instant she'd examine later. Ethan ate at the head of the table. He didn't speak to her much. He didn't have to. Every time she came back around the table, he looked up at her. Just a glance, and she understood without being told. "I see you. You're doing fine. You're safe at this table." When the men filed out to go back to work, Samuel lingered a moment behind them. "Mrs. Calloway." "Yes, sir." "That boss of mine." He nodded toward the door where Ethan had just gone out. "He don't talk much. He ain't going to tell you he's glad you're here. He's going to show you in about 40 different ways over the next 40 years, and you got to learn to read him because he ain't going to say it." Samuel. Yes, ma'am. Why are you telling me this? Because the old man said I worked for his daddy before I worked for him. And his daddy was a good man, but he was a hard man. And he never once told that boy he was proud of him. And I've watched Ethan Calloway grow up believing he don't have the right to ask nobody for nothing. So when he wrote that advertisement, ma'am, he didn't write it light. He wrote it like a man reaching his hand into a fire. You understand? She couldn't speak. She nodded. Good day to you, ma'am. Samuel. Yes? Thank you. He tipped his hat and went out. 3 days passed, and nothing caught fire, and nobody hit anybody, and Eliza started to breathe. On the 4th day, Martha Green drove up to the house in a small buggy with a basket in her lap and called out, Eliza Calloway, I know you're in there and I've brought pie. Eliza opened the door. Martha, honey, you don't have to know what to say. Just let me sit in your kitchen for an hour. They sat in the kitchen. Martha poured her own coffee. Martha cut her own pie. Martha filled the silence with the kind of harmless chatter a woman produces when she's trying to teach another woman how to be in a room with her without being afraid. And then halfway through the second cup, Martha set her mug down and said quiet, Honey, I need to tell you something. Eliza's hand went still. There was a man in town yesterday. The room tilted. What man? A stranger, well-dressed, rode in on a hired horse, asking questions. What questions? Asking if anybody had seen a young woman come through on the train, about your height, brown hair, bruised up some. The coffee in Eliza's cup was suddenly impossible to look at. Martha, I know, honey. Who did he talk to? That's the thing. He talked to Mrs. Pell. Eliza closed her eyes. Now listen to me, Martha said. Listen. Mrs. Pell is a gossipy old hen, and I wouldn't trust her with my grocery list. But she is also a woman whose husband owes Ethan Calloway $400 and a favor. And when that stranger asked her his questions, Mrs. Pell told him she didn't know nothing about nothing, and she stood on her front porch until he rode out of town. Why? Because, honey, when Ethan Calloway stopped in the street and told her to keep her mouth shut, she heard him. She heard what he meant. Whatever that man was, Mrs. Pell figured out on her own that he was on the wrong side of Ethan. And in this town, you do not get on the wrong side of Ethan Calloway. Eliza's hands were shaking again. She put them in her lap. He'll come back, she said. Maybe. He will, Martha. This isn't the one. This is a man my uncle hired. He'll go back and report, and my uncle will send someone else. Or come himself. Martha reached across the table and took her hand. Then tell Ethan. I can't. Eliza. I can't tell him. If I tell him he'll what? He'll get hurt. He'll get himself killed. He doesn't know my uncle. Honey. Martha, my uncle killed a man once. In a duel. That was legal. That was what men did. But I saw his face afterward. He enjoyed it. Eliza, look at me. She looked. You tell Ethan, Martha said. You tell him tonight. Because that man don't know who he's married to, and he is going about his business in his corral and his fields with half the information. And that ain't fair to him, and it ain't safe for you. You hear me? Yes. Tonight. Yes. Martha squeezed her hand and let go. I brought peach pie, she said in a different voice entirely. Because I refuse to speak of unpleasant men on an empty stomach. Eat your pie, honey. Eliza ate her pie. She tasted nothing. That night at supper, Ethan came in from the barn and washed at the pump and sat down at the table, and Eliza set a plate down in front of him, and then she stayed standing. You going to eat? He said. Ethan? Yes, ma'am. Eliza. There's something I have to tell you. He set his fork down. He didn't ask. He just waited. My uncle's name is Daniel Monroe, she said. He raised me after my mother died. I was 11. He was her only brother. My father died in the war before I was born. All right. He's a rich man, Ethan. He owns 3 warehouses in St. Louis, and a house with white columns, and he has a seat in some kind of gentleman's club, and everyone in that city thinks he's a pillar of the community. And he's the one that did that to you. Yes. How long? He started hitting me when I was 14. He started... Her voice failed. Eliza. He started other things when I was 17. Ethan's face didn't move. She watched it. Nothing in it changed. But his hand lying flat on the table beside his plate closed slowly into a fist, and then opened again slowly, like he was putting something down that he had just picked up. Go on, he said. I ran because he told me last month that he was going to marry me. Not to anyone, to him. He said he'd found a lawyer who could make the papers work. He said I had until my birthday to accept it graceful. When's your birthday? August 9th. That's 3 weeks. Yes? All right. Ethan, there's more. All right. Martha came today. She said there was a man in town yesterday, a stranger, asking about a woman who'd come in on the train. He's a detective. He's the first one. There'll be more. Ethan stood up from the table. Eliza flinched so hard she knocked over her own chair. Easy, Ethan said. Easy, Eliza. I ain't going nowhere. I'm just standing up. I swear on my mother I ain't going nowhere. I'm sorry. Don't you apologize. Don't you say one word of apology to me. He walked slow and careful around the table. He stopped 3 feet from her. Can I take your hand? Yes. He took her hand. His own was warm and rough and steady. Eliza Calloway. Yes. I want you to hear what I'm about to say. Yes. Your uncle ain't getting through my gate. Ethan, he ain't getting through my gate. He ain't getting on my land. He ain't speaking your name in my county. If he tries, he's going to find out that a rancher in Wyoming with 4 hands who ride for him and a sheriff who owes him a debt and a whole town that don't like strangers asking questions, that rancher is a different kind of problem than a scared girl in a big house. You hear me? Yes. Say it. He's not getting through your gate. Our gate. Our gate. Good. He let go of her hand. He bent down and picked up her chair and set it back on its feet. Sit down, he said. Eat. I can't. Then drink some water. She sat. She drank water. Her hand didn't shake as much as she thought it would. Ethan, she said. Yes. I have to ask you something. All right. Are you afraid of him? No, ma'am. You don't know him. No, ma'am, I surely don't. But I'll tell you something I do know. A man who beats on a child and calls it family is a coward. A coward can bring money, and a coward can bring hired men, and a coward can even bring a gun. But a coward can't bring the one thing that wins a fight on a man's own land. What's that? A reason worth dying for. She put her fork down. Ethan. Eliza. You've known me 5 days. 6? 6. And you're talking about dying for me. I'm talking about standing for you. The dying part ain't on the table. I intend to win. He said it so plain, so absent of show, like he was telling her the price of feed. She looked at her plate, and she felt something crack open inside her chest that she had been sealing shut for 15 years. It hurt. It hurt worse than her uncle's fists had ever hurt, because this was the pain of a thing she'd given up on reaching her. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. Do what? Be with a man who doesn't want to hurt me. Ethan sat back down across from her. He picked up his fork. He started eating again slow because he'd figured out that she ate easier when he ate first. Eliza, he said between bites, you don't have to know how. You just have to be here. That's the whole of it. That can't be the whole of it. It is today. She picked up her fork. She ate 3 bites. He watched her eat them without seeming to watch her eat them. When she was done, she said, Ethan. Yes. If he comes. When he comes. When he comes. I want to be there. I don't want to be hidden in a back room. I want him to see me. All right? All right? All right, that's your right. You want to stand in front of him? You stand in front of him. I'll stand behind you. You don't have to hide no more. You don't think I'm being foolish. I think, he said, that you are the least foolish person I ever met in my life. I think you walked out of that house with the clothes on your back and a name you made up, and you got yourself on a train with a ticket you bought with money you stole from a man twice your size, and you survived it. Foolish women don't do that, Eliza. Foolish women stay. She couldn't answer him. She reached across the table and she touched the back of his hand. Just one finger. Just the once. Just long enough to feel that his skin was warm and not going to close around her wrist. He didn't move. He let her touch him. And when she pulled her hand back, he kept eating like nothing had happened, because he'd figured out in 6 days that the smallest kindness she could accept was the kindness of a man who let a moment pass without making her pay for it. 3 miles east of Red Ridge, on the dark road back to the nearest telegraph office, a well-dressed stranger on a hired horse was composing the message he would send at first light. Subject located. Married. Rancher named Calloway. Will await instructions. In a dark study in St. Louis, 3 days later, Daniel Monroe read the telegram twice, and then he folded it in half, and he folded it in half again, and he held it over the lamp until the corner caught fire. He watched it burn down to his fingertips before he dropped it in the dish on his desk. Harlan. The man in the doorway was a former Pinkerton named Harlan Reed, 6'3", missing the top half of his left ear. Sir. Pack a trunk. We're taking the Thursday train. To where, sir? Wyoming. Daniel Monroe smiled. It was not a pleasant thing to look at. My niece has gotten married, Harlan. It seems I owe her new husband a congratulatory call. Yes, sir. And Harlan. Sir. Bring the good pistol. At the ranch, Eliza was learning how to be a person. It was the smallest things. On the 7th day, she walked outside without checking behind her once. On the 9th day, she laughed at something Samuel said, and the laugh came out all the way, not strangled in her throat, and Samuel pretended he hadn't noticed, and 3 of the younger hands pretended right along with him. On the 11th day, she sat down across from Ethan at breakfast, and she said, "Pass the salt," instead of waiting for him to offer it, and he passed it without looking up from his plate, and something in her chest unclenched another notch. On the 14th day, he found her in the kitchen crying over a pot of beans. Eliza, I'm fine. You ain't. The beans scorched. The beans can scorch. I don't eat beans for the beans. What does that mean? It means I eat your beans because you cooked them. Scorched or not. Sit down. Ethan, sit down, Eliza. She sat. He pulled the pot off the stove. He didn't make a fuss over it. He took the ladle, and he scraped the unscorched part into 2 bowls, and he set one down in front of her, and he sat down across from her, and he said, "Now, what were you crying about?" "The beans." Eliza, I don't know. All right, I don't know, Ethan. I was stirring them, and I thought he's going to be angry about the beans, and then I thought, no, he ain't. He ain't never been angry about anything, and then I couldn't stop crying, that's all. That's the whole of it. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Stop telling me not to apologize. No, ma'am. Ethan. No, ma'am, I will not stop telling you not to apologize. You can holler at me all you want. I ain't going to stop. She put her head down on the table, and she laughed until she cried, and then she laughed again. He waited her out. When she lifted her head, he pushed a clean handkerchief across the table, and then he picked up his spoon and started on the beans. They ain't that scorched, he said. They're terrible. Admit it. I will not. She laughed again. It startled her. It startled him, too. She saw his mouth twitch just the corner before he got it under control. He ate another spoonful of the scorched beans like it was the finest meal of his life. Ethan? Yes. Why do you do that? Do what? Pretend the food's good when it ain't. Because you cooked it. That ain't a reason. It's my reason. She looked at him a long moment. Her breath caught somewhere around her collarbone, and she had to push it the rest of the way out. "You're going to make me fall in love with you," she said. It came out before she could catch it. He didn't look up right away. When he did, his eyes were steady and quiet and very careful. "That's up to you, Eliza." "Is it?" "It surely is. And if I did, then I'd be the luckiest man in Wyoming Territory. But I ain't asking for it, and I ain't expecting it, and I ain't going to treat you no different tomorrow than I treated you today, whether you ever say that word again or whether you don't. You hear me?" "I hear you." "Eat your beans." She ate her beans. They were terrible. On the 16th day, the telegram came. It came to the general store, and Samuel picked it up on his way back from buying nails, and he brought it out to the ranch without opening it, and he handed it to Ethan at the corral. "From Martha," Samuel said. Ethan read it. His face did a thing Samuel had only seen it do twice before in 15 years of knowing him. "Saddle up," Ethan said. "Right now." "Right now, you, me, Caleb, Tom. Jim stays at the house." "Ethan, get Jim a rifle, the good one. Tell him he don't leave the front porch." "What's the telegram say?" "It says a man came off the noon train with another man behind him. Big man. Missing part of an ear." Samuel's mouth flattened. "Boss." "I know. That ain't the one that come last time." "No, this is the uncle." "You want me to tell Mrs. Calloway?" "No." "Ethan." "No, Samuel. Not yet. Not till I know where he's at." "She's got a right. She's got a right to not spend her afternoon scared sick while I figure out where her uncle's put himself. I'll tell her when I know something worth telling. Saddle up." Eliza was kneading bread dough when Jim Ward walked past the kitchen window with a rifle slung across his back. She stopped kneading. She stood very still with flour up to her wrists. Then she wiped her hands on her apron, and she walked to the back door, and she opened it, and she said, "Jim." "Ma'am." "Why are you carrying a rifle?" "Ethan's orders, ma'am." "Where's Ethan?" "Rode into town, ma'am." "Why?" Jim Ward was 22 years old, and he did not know how to lie to a woman who was looking at him like that. "Ma'am," he said. "Jim." "Ma'am, there was a telegram." She closed the door. She walked back to the kitchen table. She looked down at the bread dough. She picked it up and she punched it down hard with the heel of her hand, one, twice, 3 times, and on the 3rd time she stopped and stood there with her eyes closed and her breath coming fast. "He's here. He's in the town." She walked back to the door. "Jim?" "Ma'am?" "Saddle my horse." "Ma'am." "Saddle my horse, Jim Ward. Right now." "Ma'am, Ethan said—" "Ethan Calloway is my husband, not my keeper. Saddle my horse, or I'll saddle it myself, and I'll tell you right now I ain't as good at it as you are, and that horse deserves better. Go." Jim went. In the front room of the Red Ridge Hotel, Daniel Monroe was having tea. He was having tea because he was the kind of man who had tea in a hotel lobby in a frontier town in July, because he was the kind of man who wanted everyone watching to know he was not the kind of man who was intimidated by anything. He had his newspaper open. Harlan Reed was in the chair across from him with a coffee cup he hadn't touched. The front door of the hotel opened. Ethan Calloway walked in. Samuel behind him. Caleb and Tom behind Samuel. Every conversation in the lobby stopped. Daniel Monroe looked up over the edge of his newspaper. "Can I help you, sir?" "You, Monroe." "I am Daniel Monroe." "Yes. And who might you be?" "Ethan Calloway." Daniel Monroe folded his newspaper. He folded it slow. He set it on the table beside his cup. "Mr. Calloway, what a pleasure. I was just going to pay a call on your home this afternoon." "You ain't. I beg your pardon. You ain't paying a call on my home. Not this afternoon, not ever. You're going to sit in this hotel, Mr. Monroe, and you're going to finish your tea, and you're going to walk yourself down to the train station, and you're going to buy a ticket east on the next thing that rolls through. That's the conversation we're having." Daniel Monroe smiled. "Mr. Calloway, my niece, is my wife." My niece is a troubled young woman who requires the care of her family. I have traveled a considerable distance. Your niece, Ethan said. Quiet, is standing behind me. Every head in the lobby turned. Eliza Monroe Calloway stood just inside the door of the Red Ridge Hotel, and her face was white, and her hands were shaking, and she had not stopped walking. Eliza, Ethan said. He did not turn around. He kept his eyes on Daniel Monroe. Eliza, I asked you to stay at the house. I know. All right. Ethan. Yes. Step aside. Eliza. Step aside. He stepped aside. Daniel Monroe rose from his chair. His face had not changed. It had the same pleasant, lightly amused cast it had worn the night he'd broken her arm when she was 16. Hello, kitten. Don't call me that. Oh, are we past that now? We are grown up, I see. How rustic you look. Don't. Come now, Eliza. You've had your little adventure. You've made your point. Your aunt is quite beside herself. She has been weeping for a month. My aunt, Eliza said, died of fever when I was 9. A figure of speech. It ain't. Isn't, dear. Do try. You've only been in this place 2 weeks. Her mouth shook. Ethan shifted behind her. A half step. No more. She felt it. It steadied her. Uncle. Yes, kitten. I am not going back. Of course you are. I am not. Eliza. His voice dropped into the register she knew the best. The soft one. The reasonable one. The one that had always come just before. You are 20 years old. You are the ward of my household. Whatever little ceremony you have participated in with this gentleman is not a legal marriage in the state of Missouri where your guardianship resides. I have spoken with an attorney. I have documents. You are coming home with me on the afternoon train, and we are going to forget that any of this unpleasantness occurred. Do you understand? No. I beg your pardon. No, Uncle, I don't understand. Something flickered across his face. It was gone as fast as it came. But every person in the room who had been paying attention saw it, and Ethan Calloway had been paying a great deal of attention. Eliza, you beat me. The lobby went still as a held breath. Eliza, lower your voice. You beat me when I was 14 because I spilled tea. You beat me when I was 15 because I spoke to a boy at church. You beat me when I was 17, and then you came to my room that same night and you... Eliza. And you told me that if I ever told anyone, you would say I was a liar and a whore, and you would have me committed to an asylum. And I believed you, Uncle. I believed you for 3 years. I believed you until the night you told me I was going to marry you on my birthday. And then I didn't believe you anymore because I realized you weren't going to stop. Not ever. So I took the money out of your desk drawer, and I bought a train ticket, and I came here, and I married a man who has not raised his voice to me one time in 16 days, and you are not taking me back. Daniel Monroe's face had gone white. Niece, he said. His voice had lost its softness. You are making a spectacle of yourself. Good. There are people listening. Good. You slanderous little... He took a step forward. Ethan Calloway did not move. He did not have to. Samuel moved. Caleb moved. Tom moved. 3 men in working clothes shifted their weight without crossing the floor, and Daniel Monroe stopped where he was, because even a man from St. Louis could read a room. Harlan Reed behind him had gone very still. His hand was near his coat. It was not under it. Yet. Monroe. The voice came from the doorway of the hotel. Every head turned again. Sheriff Arlen Booth had walked in some time during the last exchange. No one had heard him come. He had a star on his vest and a hand resting on his belt, and the kind of face that had been carved by 30 years of sun and mistakes. Sheriff, Daniel Monroe said. His voice pulled itself back together. Sheriff, thank God. I am being accosted. You ain't. I beg your pardon. I said you ain't being accosted, Mr. Monroe. I've been standing on that porch for 5 minutes and I heard everything that just got said, and I'd thank you not to lie to a peace officer in my own town. Now you are going to sit down in that chair, and your man there is going to put both of his on the table where I can see them, and we are going to have a civilized conversation about what you're doing in Redridge. Sheriff, this is an abduction. My niece is a minor child. She's 20. In the state of Missouri. We ain't in the state of Missouri, Mr. Monroe. This here is Wyoming territory. And in Wyoming territory, a married woman is a married woman, and her husband is sitting right there, and I can see him just fine. You have no jurisdiction. I got all the jurisdiction I need, sir, and I'll tell you what else I got. I got a lady standing in the middle of my hotel lobby with fading bruises on her collarbone that I can see from 12 feet away, and I got her telling me in front of God and 11 witnesses that you put those bruises there, and that Mr. Monroe is an assault complaint filed in my town against an out-of-state gentleman, and I am obligated by law to investigate it. You understand me? Daniel Monroe's face had gone the color of old paper. Sheriff, you cannot possibly be serious. I can, sir. I surely can. Now you got two choices. One is, you sit down and we go to my office and we have a long conversation that I expect is going to take us clean into tomorrow morning. The other is, you get on the 4:15 train east and you go home and you do not set foot in my county again, and you do not send one more detective, one more letter, one more telegram, one more thought in the direction of Mrs. Calloway for the rest of your natural life. Which one is it going to be? Silence. Daniel Monroe's hand was shaking on the back of the chair. The 4:15, he said. Louder, sir. The 4:15. That's a fine choice. Your man will walk with you. My deputy will walk behind both of you. And the four of us are going to the station together right now because I want to see your boots get on that train with my own eyes. Eliza stood in the middle of the lobby and watched her uncle walk out of the Red Ridge Hotel. He did not look at her as he passed her. He could not. The sheriff tipped his hat to her at the door. Mrs. Calloway. Sheriff. You come by my office anytime you need to. Anytime at all. Thank you. And ma'am. Yes. You did a hard thing just now. You ought to know that. He left. The lobby stayed silent. Nobody moved. Samuel, Caleb, and Tom stood where they were standing, waiting for Ethan to tell them what came next. Eliza turned around. Ethan was exactly where he had been the whole time, 3 feet behind her, hat in his hands, eyes on her face. Eliza, don't. All right. Don't tell me I'm brave. Don't tell me you're proud of me. Don't. All right? Don't say anything. All right, Eliza. She walked straight into him. She put her face against the front of his shirt. She did not cry. She did not shake. She stood there with her forehead pressed against his collarbone, and she breathed, and she breathed, and she breathed. Ethan put one hand slow against the back of her head. His other hand stayed at his side. You want me to let go? He said, quiet enough that only she could hear. No. All right. Ethan. Yes. He's going to come back. No, ma'am. You don't know him. I know his face just now. That was the face of a man who understood he'd been stood up to in a public room and lost. That kind of man don't come back. That kind of man finds an easier target. He might. He might. And if he does, he'll find the same room full of people waiting for him. Ethan? Yes. I'm tired. I know. I want to go home. The words slipped out of her. Ethan Calloway, who had been told all his life that he did not have the right to ask for anything, closed his eyes for one single moment at the sound of Eliza saying the word home about his house. Yes, ma'am, he said. Let's get you home. The ride home from the Red Ridge Hotel took an hour and a half. Nobody spoke for the first 30 minutes. Eliza sat on the wagon bench with her hands folded tight in her lap, and she did not look at Ethan, and Ethan did not look at her, and the silence between them was not a cold thing, just a thing neither of them knew how to break without breaking something else besides. At the 40-minute mark, Eliza said, I lied to him once. Ma'am, my uncle, when I was 15. He asked me if I'd ever thought about running, and I told him no, and it was the first lie I ever told that didn't get caught. I remember walking out of his study that night and thinking I just did something. I just did a thing he didn't know about. It was the first free thing I ever had. All right? That was 5 years ago. All right. It took me 5 years, Ethan. It took you exactly as long as it took. Don't measure it against what you think it should have been. Samuel told me you don't say things. Samuel talks too much. Samuel said you'd never say them. He said I'd have to learn to read you. Ethan clucked to the horses. The wagon rolled on. I ain't good at saying things, Eliza. I know. I ain't going to pretend I am. I don't want you to pretend. All right. A pause, another quarter mile. Eliza. Yes, I'm glad you stood up in there. You told me not to come. I told you to stay at the house. I was wrong to tell you that. I thought I was protecting you. I wasn't. I was taking the thing from you that you came out here to get. She turned her face toward him. What's that? The chance to tell him no. She did not answer. She reached over and she put her hand on top of his where it held the reins. Just laid her hand there. She did not curl her fingers under his. She did not squeeze. She just left her hand on his hand. He did not change his grip. He did not take his eyes off the horses. But for one long second, his shoulders went very still, as if he was trying not to breathe in a way that might disturb her. They rode the last 20 minutes like that. At the house, she did not go inside right away. She stood at the foot of the porch steps with one hand on the rail, and she looked back down the road. Ethan. Yes. I don't want to sleep alone tonight. He went still. I don't mean... She started. I know what you mean. I just mean I don't want to be in a room by myself. Not tonight. I keep thinking I'm going to hear a horse out on the road and Eliza. Yes. I'll sleep in the chair in the front room. You leave your bedroom door open. You hear anything you holler, and I'll be there before you finish hollering. That's too much to ask. You didn't ask, ma'am. I offered. You haven't slept in that house one night in 2.5 weeks. That ain't true. I slept in it for 34 years before you got here. The chair knows me. A small sound came out of her. Half a laugh. Ethan Calloway. Yes. I'm going to tell you something, and you're going to let me say it without interrupting. All right? I married you because I was out of choices. I rode that train because I was desperate. I walked up to you on that platform because if it hadn't been you, it was going to be somebody worse. That's the truth, and it is ugly, and I am telling it to you on purpose. Do you hear me? I hear you. Here. But today, Ethan. Today I stood in that hotel, and I looked my uncle in the face, and the only reason I could do that was because you were standing behind me. Not because you were fighting for me, because you were with me. You understand the difference. I think I do. You let me fight him. Yes, ma'am. No man has ever let me do anything, Ethan. Ever. In my whole life. And you let me fight him. Eliza, I'm not done. No, ma'am. I don't know what I feel yet. I don't know what I'm capable of feeling. I might never know. I might be broken in a way that don't grow back. I am telling you this because you deserve the truth, and because you have been honest with me every single day since I got off that train. But I am going to try, Ethan Calloway. I am going to try for as long as it takes me to be a wife to the man who let me fight my own uncle. Do you hear me? I hear you. That's all I have to say. He took his hat off. He held it in both hands. He looked down at the brim for a long moment, and then he looked up at her. Eliza. Yes. I don't need you to be a wife to me. I need you to be a person. You be a person first. The rest of it'll come, or it won't, and I will love you the same either way, and I am telling you that now, because you just told me the truth and you deserve one back. She closed her eyes. You said the word. What word? You said it. Oh, you said it, Ethan. I reckon I did. You were going to wait? I was going to wait till you said it first. Then you gave that speech and I lost my footing." She laughed. It broke, and then it was crying, and then it was laughing again, and she sat down on the porch step because she couldn't stand up anymore, and Ethan sat down on the step below her with his hat still in his hands. "Eliza." "Yes." "You don't have to say anything back." "I know. I mean it." "I know, Ethan." She put her hand on the back of his neck. Just for a second. Her fingers in the short hair there. It was the first time she had touched him of her own choosing, without a reason. He did not move. Then she got up, and she went inside, and she left the door open behind her. That night he slept in the chair. She slept in the bed. She woke up at 2 in the morning from a dream she did not remember, gasping, her hands already up in front of her face, and before the second gasp was out of her mouth, Ethan was in the bedroom doorway saying, "Eliza, Eliza, it's me. It's Ethan. You're at the ranch. You're home." "Ethan, can I come in?" "Yes." "I'm going to sit on the floor." "Ethan." "On the floor, Eliza. By the door. Not on the bed." "That all right?" "Yes." He sat on the floor. He put his back against the wall. He did not touch her. He did not turn a lamp up. He just sat there in the dark and breathed slow and steady, and she listened to him breathe, and her own breath started matching his without her telling it to. And within 5 minutes, she was asleep again. She woke at dawn, and he was gone from the floor. There was a cup of water on the nightstand that had not been there when she fell asleep. She drank it, and she pressed her palm flat against her chest, and she said out loud to nobody, "I can feel my heart." It was the first time in 17 years that was a good thing. A week went by, then another. Daniel Monroe. Samuel learned from a cousin of his, who worked the telegraph office, had gotten as far as Omaha before he'd been thrown off his own train for striking a porter who had asked him to lower his voice. Harlan Reed had walked away at that station and had not been seen since. There were rumors Reed had been paid to come west and had been paid twice as much to leave, and that the second pay had come from someone other than Monroe, but nobody could say for certain, and nobody in Red Ridge cared enough to find out. What came next was not Daniel Monroe on a horse. What came next was a letter. It came on a Tuesday. Ethan brought it in from the mailbox at the end of the road, and he stood in the kitchen turning it over in his hands, and he said, "Eliza, this one's for you." "Who from?" "St. Louis. Attorney's letterhead." Her hands went to ice. "Open it," she said. "It's yours, Eliza." "Open it, Ethan, please, I can't." He opened it. He read it. She watched his face. "What does it say?" "It says your uncle is filing a civil suit." "For what?" "For the money you took from his desk." $400. $412 according to the letter. He's taking me to court over $400. "No, ma'am." "What do you mean, no?" "He ain't taking you to court. He's threatening to. There's a difference. He wants you to be scared. This letter ain't a lawsuit. This letter is a man in a study in St. Louis trying to reach across 1,000 miles and put his hands on you, and his hands don't reach." "Ethan, what did that money buy Eliza?" "A train ticket." "What else?" "I gave the rest to a woman at a boarding house in Kansas City to lie to the first detective." "Was the woman lying worth $400 to you?" "Yes." "Then you bought something with that money, and you got your money's worth. He ain't owed a penny. And we're going to write back and tell him so." "We are?" "We are. Sit down." He got paper and pen, and he set them on the table, and he said, "You write. I'll tell you what to say if you want. But it ought to come from you." She picked up the pen. Her hand was shaking. "Ethan, I can't." "All right, I'll start. You finish." He dictated. She wrote, "Mr. Monroe, I received your letter. The money you refer to was wages. You never paid me for 17 years of running your household, caring for your linens, receiving your guests, or enduring your violence. $412 is less than the wage of a paid servant for 1 year. By my count, you owe me a great deal more. I will consider the debt between us settled, and I will not be writing to you again. Mrs. Eliza Calloway. She wrote it out in her own hand. She signed Mrs. Eliza Calloway with a pen that did not shake by the last letter. Ethan? Yes. I'm going to take this to the post office myself. All right? I want the postmaster to see me mail it. Yes, ma'am. I want the whole town to see me mail it. Get your bonnet. She mailed the letter in front of 3 witnesses. One of them was Mrs. Pell, the woman who had stood on her porch in the street 6 weeks earlier and said that is what Calloway sent away for. Mrs. Pell saw Eliza sealing the envelope, and Mrs. Pell stepped forward hesitant and said, Mrs. Calloway, may I speak with you a moment? Yes, Mrs. Pell. I want to apologize to you. Oh, I said something unkind the day you arrived. I did not know who you were. I still do not know who you are not properly. But I know who your husband is, and I know who stood in that hotel lobby and told her own uncle no, and I am ashamed of myself. Eliza did not speak for a moment. Mrs. Pell. Yes, Mrs. Calloway. I accept your apology. Thank you, ma'am. And I would like some time to sit with you over tea. I don't have many friends here yet. I would like to learn how. Mrs. Pell's eyes filled. She nodded hard twice and she said, Thursday, my house, 2 o'clock. I'll bake something. Eliza walked out of the post office with the beginning of something in her chest she could not name. Ethan was waiting at the wagon. Well, Mrs. Pell invited me to tea. Did she now? Thursday. I'll drive you. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to see the look on her husband's face when I tip my hat to him. Get on up. The thing nobody had expected happened on a Saturday in the middle of August. Martha Green came driving up to the ranch with her husband beside her and a fiddle case in the wagon bed, and she called out, Eliza Calloway, you have been hiding in this house for 6 weeks, and the Lord in his wisdom did not make summer evenings so the women of Red Ridge could waste them indoors. The church is having a dance. Martha, you are coming. I don't. You are coming, honey. You and Ethan both. I've already told him. He said yes. Ethan said yes to a dance. Samuel said yes for him. Samuel said he'd carry Ethan there on his shoulder if he had to. Go put on the blue dress. We leave in an hour. An hour later, Eliza Monroe Calloway walked into the Red Ridge Church Hall in a borrowed blue dress for the second time in her life, and the whole hall went quiet. And then a fiddle player struck up a tune, and Ethan Calloway, who had not danced since his mother's funeral, held out his hand to his wife and said, Mrs. Calloway. Mr. Calloway. I ain't good at this. I know. I'm going to step on your foot. I know, Ethan. I apologize in advance. Shut up and take me out there. 3 couples were already moving. Ethan put one hand at her waist and took her hand in the other, and he moved them both in the general direction of dancing, and he stepped on her foot twice in the first minute, and Eliza laughed so hard she had to hide her face against his shoulder. Eliza. Yes. People are looking. Let them look. All right. Ethan. Yes. I love you. He missed a step. He caught it. He did not stop moving. He did not pull back to look at her. He kept his hand at her waist and his other hand in hers, and he kept moving her in a rough approximation of a dance. Eliza Calloway. Yes. I am going to need you to say that again when I am not trying to count my own feet. All right. Say it tomorrow morning at the kitchen table. All right. At breakfast. All right, Ethan. With witnesses. Witnesses. Samuel. I want Samuel there, so I can't convince myself later I misheard. She laughed into his shoulder until she was crying, and he held her there in the middle of the church hall floor, and nobody in Red Ridge said one word about it, because every man and woman in that hall had already decided without a vote that the Calloways were theirs. The next morning at breakfast, she set it in front of Samuel. Samuel, who had been buttering a biscuit, set his knife down very slowly. Mrs. Calloway. Yes, Samuel. You just tell this man that you love him. I did. In front of me? Yes. At his table? Yes. At breakfast? Yes, Samuel. Samuel picked up his biscuit. He took a bite. He chewed. He swallowed. Boss? Yes, Samuel. I believe your wife is trying to kill you. I believe she might be. You best say it back, boss. Samuel. Boss. Ethan set his coffee cup down. He looked at Eliza across the table. Eliza Monroe Calloway. Yes. I've been loving you since the afternoon you fixed my stove. That was the third day. Yes, ma'am. You loved me on the third day. I reckon I loved you on the first day. The third day was just when I admitted it. Samuel picked up his coffee cup. Biscuits are good, Mrs. Calloway. Thank you, Samuel. Y'all are disgusting. I know, Samuel. I'm meeting outside. He took his plate and he went out onto the porch and he sat on the top step in the morning sun, and through the open window he heard his boss, a man he had known for 15 years and had never once heard laugh with his whole chest. Samuel smiled down at his biscuit. He did not let anybody see him do it. Inside the house, Ethan Calloway reached across the breakfast table and he took his wife's hand, and this time he closed his fingers around hers, and this time she closed hers back, and neither one of them let go for a long, long time. Autumn came to Red Ridge the way it comes to ranch country, not slow, not gentle, but in one blue sharp morning at the end of September, when the hay was in and the nights turned cold enough to see your breath, and the women of the valley started putting up preserves in earnest. Eliza Calloway was on her knees in the kitchen garden, pulling the last of the summer carrots when Martha Green's buggy came fast up the road. Too fast. Eliza stood up. Martha. Eliza. Get Ethan. What's happened? Get Ethan, honey. I'll tell you both. Eliza did not run. She had not run in 3 months. She walked fast to the corral, and she called Ethan's name once, and he was off the horse before his name was out of her mouth. Martha. I come from town. What is it? There's a telegram at the depot. It's for Eliza. It come in this morning. The telegraph boy wouldn't bring it out alone. He asked me to come with him. Why? Because of who sent it. Eliza's hands went cold. My uncle. No, honey. Then who? A lawyer in St. Louis, name of I don't remember. Henderson something. Anyway, it's in my bag. The boy gave it to me to hand to you myself. Martha handed over a folded yellow slip. Eliza took it. She did not open it. Ethan. I'm here. Will you read it? Eliza. I can't. Read it, please. He took it. He unfolded it. His eyes moved across the words. His face went through nothing at all, which was worse than if it had gone through something. Ethan. Eliza. Tell me. Your uncle is dead. The wind came up off the pasture, and it moved through the cottonwoods, and nobody in the yard said anything for 10 seconds. How? Eliza said. It don't say how. When? 5 days ago. Who sent the telegram? His attorney. A man named Henderson. He says he needs to reach you. He says there's a matter of the estate. I don't want the estate. Eliza. I don't want it, Ethan. I don't want $1 of that man's money. I don't want the house. I don't want the warehouses. I don't want his name. Burn that telegram. I ain't burning it. Then I will. Eliza. Martha stepped forward. Honey, look at me. Eliza looked at her. You listen to me, Eliza Calloway. You listen to me right now. That man hurt you for 17 years. He made you think you was a thing, not a person. And now he is dead, and he is cold, and he cannot do one more thing to you ever again in this world. And the money he had, honey, the money he had was your money. You earned it. You earned every cent of it. You understand me. You don't get to burn it. You get to take it. You get to take every dollar of it, and you get to build a life with it, and every time you spend $1, you get to think that was wages I was owed. Martha. You hear me, Eliza? I hear you. Don't burn that telegram. Eliza looked at Ethan. Ethan handed her the telegram. She held it. She did not open it. She folded it again along the same crease, and she put it in her apron pocket. "I'll think on it," she said. "That's all I ask, honey." "How did he die?" "I don't know, honey. I want to know how." "We'll find out." It came out in the next letter from the attorney, which arrived on a Thursday, and which Eliza opened herself at the kitchen table with Ethan sitting across from her. Daniel Monroe had been shot at close range in his own study by a man named Harlan Reed. The letter was very polite. The letter described a disagreement over payment for services rendered. The letter described Mr. Reed walking into Monroe's study without an appointment, which the butler had found curious. The letter described the butler hearing a single shot, and then a second shot, and then the front door opening and closing, and Mr. Reed walking out into the street and getting into a hansom cab and disappearing into the city of St. Louis and not being seen again by anyone who would later admit it. The letter also mentioned in the last paragraph, in a tone of professional embarrassment, that Mr. Monroe's will had been updated 11 days before his death. It had been updated to disinherit his niece entirely. But the updated will had not been signed in front of witnesses, and the unsigned will had no standing in any court in Missouri, which meant that the prior will, the one dated 4 years earlier, was the one that stood. And the prior will named Eliza Monroe as the sole heir. Eliza read the letter through once. She put it down on the table. She put her face in her hands. She laughed. She laughed the way she had laughed at the dance in the church hall, the way she had laughed over the scorched beans, full-throated, whole-chested, a little hysterical at the edges. Ethan waited her out. "Eliza." "He tried, Ethan. He tried to cut me out. He sat down with his lawyer, and he wrote me out of his will, and he didn't sign it in time." "No, ma'am. He couldn't even finish that. The last thing he tried to do to me, he didn't finish." "Eliza." "Yes." "How much is the estate?" She looked at the letter again. She found the figure. "Ethan." "Yes." "It's $46,000. Ethan Calloway, who had never seen more than $800 in one place in his life, set his coffee cup down carefully. "Well," he said. "Ethan? All right then. What do we do?" "I don't know, Eliza. I surely don't. That's your money?" "Our money." "No, ma'am." "Ethan Calloway." "Eliza Calloway." "We are married." "Yes, ma'am." "Our money." "Eliza." "You are not going to sit there and tell me that money is not ours. Not after everything. Not after you sat in a chair in that front room every night for 6 weeks when you had a perfectly good bed in the tack room. Not after you let me fight my own uncle in a hotel lobby. Our money. Say it, Ethan. Our money." "Thank you. I don't want a cent of it." "I know you don't. I know how it feels." "All right. But we are going to take it, Ethan. We are going to take it, and we are going to do something with it, and I do not yet know what, but we will figure it out. Together." He looked at her a long moment. Then he stood up, and he came around the table, and he kneeled down beside her chair, and he took her hand. "Eliza." "Yes." "I never knelt down to ask you the first time." "No, I'm going to do it now. I'm going to do it right. Ethan, you already said yes once. You already stood in front of Reverend Hollis. You already wore my mother's ring, but you did it because you were out of choices. And I want to ask you, ma'am, now that you got all the choices in the world, will you stay my wife? Will you stay on this ranch? Will you grow old with me? And will you be buried beside me? And will you let me spend every day of the rest of my life trying to be the kind of husband a woman picks on purpose?" She could not see him through her tears. "Yes." "Yes? Yes, Ethan? All right then. Get up off the floor." "No, ma'am. I'm going to stay here a minute." "Ethan?" "I waited 34 years to kneel in front of somebody, Eliza. You let me have my minute." She put her hand on the top of his head. He pressed his forehead just for a second against her knee. Then he got up. He sat back down across the table from her. He picked up his coffee cup. "All right," he said. "What are we doing with $46,000? I have an idea. Let's hear it. I want to buy Martha's husband's mortgage from the bank, and I want to burn it on her front porch. Eliza, I want to pay Mrs. Pell's husband's debt to you, and I want you to tell him it's paid, and I want him to ask why, and I want you to say because my wife decided so. Woman, I want to build a schoolhouse in Red Ridge, with glass windows, and I want to hire a teacher, and I want to pay her more than any teacher in Wyoming Territory gets paid, so she don't leave us. Eliza, and I want the rest of it to sit in a bank and earn interest, for our children. He did not move. Our children. Yes, Ethan. Eliza. Yes. You sure? I'm sure. All of that. All of that. And I don't get a say. You get a say. Say it. Say what? Tell me one thing you want to do with the money that I haven't said. He thought about it. He took his time. She let him. I want to buy Samuel a proper pair of boots, he said finally. The man has been wearing the same pair for 7 years, and they are a disgrace. I want to pay him his full wage for as long as he wants to work, and a pension after that. I want him to sit in a rocking chair on a porch I paid for, and I want him to die an old man with no debt. Done. Done. Done, Ethan. All right then. All right. Eliza. Yes? There's one more thing. What? He put his coffee cup down. I want to put your name on the deed to this ranch. Ethan, my name's on it alone, my daddy's name before mine. There ain't been a Calloway woman's name on it in 3 generations. I want yours on it, beside mine. I want it so that if anything ever happens to me, if a horse throws me, or if a fever takes me, or if a winter is harder than I planned for, this land is yours. Not because you married me, because you are me. You understand the difference. She could not speak. Eliza. Yes. Will you let me put your name on my daddy's deed? Yes, Ethan. All right then. In the middle of November, Eliza Calloway stopped in the kitchen one morning with her hand on the back of a chair, and she did not move for a full minute. Ethan at the table saw her stop. Eliza. I'm all right. You sure? I'm fine, Ethan. She straightened up. She looked at him. Her face had gone white and then pink. Ethan? Yes. I need to go see the doctor. He was on his feet. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Eliza. Sit down, Ethan. Sit down. Nothing is wrong. I think I am not sure, and I want to be sure. And I want the doctor to tell me, and then I want to come home and tell you. That's how I want it to go. You sit down. You finish your breakfast. I'll ride into town with Samuel. Eliza, you are going to tell me what is happening in this kitchen right now. No, I am not. Woman. Ethan Calloway, you are going to sit in that chair and you are going to wait. Because I have been handed every piece of news in my life by somebody else, and this one piece of news, Ethan? This one piece I want to be the one to tell. I want to tell you. I want to be the one. Do you hear me? He sat down. I hear you, he said. Thank you. She rode to town with Samuel in the wagon, and she came back 3 hours later, and she walked into the kitchen where Ethan had been sitting at the table for 3 hours without moving, and she sat down across from him. Ethan. Yes. I'm going to have a baby. Ethan Calloway put both hands flat on the table. He looked at his hands. He looked at her. He looked at his hands again. Eliza. Yes. Say it again. I'm going to have a baby, Ethan. A baby. Yes. Our baby. Yes, Ethan. Our baby. When? May. The doctor says May. May. Yes. All right. All right. Yes, ma'am. That's all you got to say. Eliza? Yes. I ain't got words for this. I know, Ethan. I ain't got them. I know. I'm going to cry. Go on, then. Ethan Calloway put his face down in his hands, and he cried at his own kitchen table. And Eliza got up, and she walked around the table, and she put her arms around his shoulders from behind, And she held him the way he had held her so many nights in the front room chair, without a word, without a bargain, without a single thing asked in return. When he could speak again, he said, "Eliza." "Yes." "I don't know how to be a father." "I don't know how to be a mother." "All right, we'll figure it out. Together. Together, Ethan." The baby came on a warm morning at the end of May, and the baby was a girl, and the baby was healthy and loud and furious at the world from her first breath. Eliza named her Mary for Ethan's mother. When Ethan held his daughter for the first time, a bundle the size of a loaf of bread with a fist curled up against her own cheek, he looked at Eliza lying exhausted and triumphant in the bed, and he said, "Eliza." "Yes, she's got your mouth." "Ethan, she does. Look at her. She's got your mouth already. She ain't even cried proper yet, and I can see it." "Ethan Calloway." "Yes. Come here." He came. He sat on the edge of the bed with his daughter in one arm and his wife's hand in the other, and he did not say anything for a long time because there was nothing in 35 years of being Ethan Calloway that had prepared him to say anything useful at a moment like that one. "Ethan?" "Yes." "I want you to look at me." He looked. 18 months ago, Eliza said, "I stepped off a train in this town with a split lip and a trunk full of stolen things and a name I had made up to save my own life. And today I am lying in a bed in a house that has my name on the deed, holding a child that has my mouth, with the kindest man in Wyoming Territory holding her right alongside me. And I want to tell you something, and I want you to hear it." "I hear you. My uncle told me my whole life that my worth was what he said it was. He told me I was nothing without his name. He told me I was a weak thing and a broken thing and a ruined thing, and that no man would ever want me, and that I was fortunate to have a roof over my head. Eliza, I'm not finished. No, ma'am, he was wrong, about every word of it. He was wrong, Ethan, and I know he was wrong because I stopped being his and I started being mine, and then I started being ours, and a woman's worth ain't something her family gives her or her town gives her or a man in a white-columned house gives her. It's something she builds, Ethan, with her own two hands, out of the choices she makes. And the first real choice I ever made in this world was to get off that train and walk up to you on that platform, and every choice since has been built on top of that one. And I want our daughter to know that, Ethan. I want her to know that her mother was broken once, and she built herself back one piece at a time at a kitchen table in a house her husband put her name on, and that there is nothing in this world that can take from a woman what she has built for herself on purpose." Ethan Calloway was crying again. He did not try to hide it. "Eliza." "Yes. You are going to be one hell of a mother. I know. You know. I know, Ethan. I finally know." She reached up and she put her hand against his cheek. "Say it with me," she said. "Say what?" "Say her name. Mary. Mary Calloway. Mary Calloway. She is a choice, Ethan. Not an accident, not a duty, not a debt, a choice. Our choice. Our choice. Say it again. Our choice, Eliza." She closed her eyes. Outside the bedroom window, Samuel Greer was sitting on the top step of the porch with his hat in his hands and tears running down into his beard, because he had been the first man to hear the baby cry, and he had walked outside rather than let his boss see him like that, because there were some kinds of joy a man does not share with his boss even after 15 years. Martha Green was in the kitchen putting on coffee for a house that would be full of visitors by sundown. Mrs. Pell was already driving up the road with a basket of food and a bolt of yellow cotton for a christening gown, and she was crying too, and her husband beside her was crying a little, and neither of them would admit it to each other for the rest of their lives. In a study in St. Louis, 8 months dead, Daniel Monroe's chair sat empty behind a desk that had been sold to pay his creditors, and the house with the white columns had been broken up into boarding rooms, and a woman named Bess, who had once been the cook in that house, was now running the kitchen of a small hotel downtown with money Eliza had sent her in an envelope with no return address, because Eliza Calloway had decided at the kitchen table one morning in February that every woman who had survived that house was going to be paid her wages one way or another. Eliza opened her eyes. She looked at her husband. She looked at her daughter. She said, and this was the last thing she said before she slept, and she said it clear, and she said it firm, and she said it with the voice of a woman who had finally, after a long road, become the author of her own life. A woman's worth is to her by anyone. It is built by her own hand on ground of her own choosing, with people who love her on purpose, and once she has built it, no man, no past, and no fear on earth can take it from her again.